Hello, welcome back to the Midlands Rugby podcast. Phil, how you doing?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
I'm good. As prepared as ever. I just asked you what episode number we're on. No fucking idea. Amazing. Here we go. It's a Wednesday. We're here this week with a special guest, Dougie. Dougie, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm not quite sure how special I am, but thanks for that.
Well, I'm pretty bored of Phil every other Wednesday, so someone else to talk to.
Oh yeah, it's an easy win then.
It's quite nice. So, Dougie, if people are watching on YouTube, it's very clear you've got a Lincoln Rugby hat on. But tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us how you got into rugby, and tell us what you're doing now.
So I'm currently in Lincoln now, so that's where I am. At the age of 38. I'm the director of rugby there now. I started at 11, I think 11 at school. I was introduced to rugby at school, and then played school and team rugby. That was back on the Wirral, not a million miles from Liverpool, if people aren't quite sure. So went to a really good rugby school, Coldy School. Played at Coldy Club and Hoylake. Went to university in Sheffield. Played university rugby over there. And then I joined the army. So since I was 22, my rugby story has been flitting all over the place. Oxford Harlequins, Wensleydale, Amped Hill, Huntingdon, literally all over the place. And this is my second stint in Lincoln now. So yeah, that's it.
Amazing. So well travelled in the sense of rugby.
Yeah, I think it comes with the job, moving every 2 or 3 years or so. That has pros and cons against it, but yeah, plenty of different styles of rugby seen in different parts of the country, which is good.
Yeah. Do you, as this is going to be a proper nausy question now, isn't it? As someone who's travelled around the UK and seen lots of styles of rugby, do you try and build that different style, take bits of that different style of rugby you've seen and build it into your lads at Lincoln? Or
So, if we take Gloucestershire, for example, where it is big, massive, heavy packs chunking around the pitch, the backs get a little bit of ball, but it's very set piece and forward dominated. If a coach comes from there and tries to install that at Lincoln, he's going to fail. He will lose from day one, because you have to be able to plan around the players that you have. So you have to exploit the skill sets that they have. And for me at Lincoln, we don't have a load of 6'6" massive hulking beasts who can play that type of game. So if that was my style, I would have failed. What you can do is take aspects from the different coaches that you work with and pick the good things out of all of them, regardless of whether it's for a big team or a small team, a slow team or a quick team. You can take the bits from specific coaches, and I've been lucky to work with a lot of skilled guys in the past.
Phil, is that something you've done from your previous coaches? Because I know you've got a bit of a sketchy relationship with some of your previous coaches around.
With one, yeah, just one. Yeah, I have even with maybe the one that I don't have the greatest relationship with. You still take the better parts of what they did. And the drills they use and their thoughts on certain aspects of the game. You still take them in and understand that they were trying to do the right thing. Just maybe they were a terrible person. I think there's some things that you kind of know won't work. I think Dougie's made a good point about you can't make people do things that they're just not capable of doing. And Tom will know very well that as soon as I work out what people can't do, I normally throw it in the bin quite quickly, having harangued them for it. Yeah, it's one of those things you learn as a coach is what's going to work and at what level. I coached at that one level, and you could expect a certain quality, and then you step down a bit. And to be fair to the previous lads, skill wise, we don't lack that much in the first team.
It's just mine. It's just brains, isn't it?
It's just, we just lack a lot of brain. Yeah.
Both of you in your and this is because I love how Phil speaks to our Colts coming up. If they don't listen to one thing he says, his famous line of "I'm not here to pack your fucking lunch" comes out very quickly in the huddle. How do you deal with young players? Are you as abusive as Phil is?
I try and treat all of the lads exactly the same. So I don't want to mollycoddle a young lad coming through. If I think they can handle a bit of banter, then they'll get it straight away, because I want them to know what the situation that they're in. So me as the DOR and then the coaching group that I've got, we're all like quite gregarious characters, like a laugh, like to have a laugh with the boys. Myself being in the military, the head coach at the club is ex-military. There's some current RAF and former RAF lads. So that type of banter is there constantly. So I think we get the lads into it pretty quick. You have to taper it at the start, obviously, to see how they can deal with that. But as soon as I can lift the level, it goes up absolutely straight away.
I was going to say, there's rugby banter, which is, let's be honest, horrendous sometimes. And then there's banter from people that have been in or are in the forces. Fuck that for a mix. you terrify some of our young lads.
Similar, because there's a similar ethos. There's a reason why in the military that rugby is such a highly regarded sport. You know, all of the aspects of it that we talk about, cliches of communication and teamwork and all that. That is absolutely what we do in the military. So the levels of banter can be very similar as well. So
yeah,
the only time we get any crossover is when I'm giving some of the RAF lads shit because I'm in the army, and then the boys who've never been in the military are like, what are these guys talking about?
Straight over their heads.
I try and minimise that, but it always slips out.
I think it's true though that you when these young lads come through, and I know I am bad for it, but I didn't get like the grace that a lot of them used to get. You know, I was thrown in very much at the deep end and literally had to fight my way into a position to get what the accolades that I got. I think like some of them just rock up and genuinely expect it all to be done for them, or mum will organise how I'm going to get to the game, or daddy will sort this out. I hate that. That's literally the one thing I absolutely despise.
Yeah.
And any sort of like comments like that, I'll just dive on straight away. Like we've got a group of lads, and they've started taking it quite well actually, and we call them the Library Club because they're quite like, they're obviously like the popular lads at school. Not many brain cells between them, to be fair, but they well talkative until they start playing rugby and they all go quiet. So they've been named the Library Club, and they've taken it quite well, to be fair, and they are genuinely improving as a group of lads. But it's just one of those things where like they obviously just been babied basically all the way to 16, and then suddenly shit hits the fan when they do senior rugby and they go very quiet.
Yeah, I mean that transition pathway, it's from colt to senior is an issue for the RFU and every club across the country. I think, and it's not about how teams are managed and how coaches talk to players. It's about the number of people who move away from home and move to university and then don't necessarily pick up club rugby again. They might just play uni rugby or whatever other multitude of excuses there are to stop playing. It's that transition. I don't think there's a lot that we can do as coaches or DORs or whatever to really massively improve that. You might be able to improve it a little bit, but not massively. There's just an ethos we have to accept, I think, and just try and do what we can.
Definitely. I guess while we're here, and Dougie, I told you we wouldn't have anything to talk about, but since we last spoke, Tom, our mate's been fired.
Oh my God, yeah. And as a DOR dog, yeah, but you must have some stuff to do. I mean, we're English, we follow rugby, we all have 2 pence on Eddie Jones.
Yeah.
We might as well move away before we go into the Midlands rugby part of it.
Yeah.
We put out an episode. I don't know if you heard last time we did one. We put an episode and I was slating Eddie Jones. I don't normally slate him. And immediately as I put it out, I was like, not sure I agree with myself there. I must have had a few whiskies. And as I am again tonight. So I might regret anything I say tonight. But that's a bit of an interesting thing. I don't know what part you wanted to touch on, Phil, but one thing I know other people have touched on in the press and what have you, and on more reputable podcasts is how much money it has cost to get Eddie out of a contract, how much money it could get if it is going to be Borthers. I mean, everyone's 95% sure if it is going to be him, how much it's going to cost to get him in, plus his coach and staff, and then community rugby plus champ rugby and Prem rugby really is on its arse. Where do you think? What do you think rugby can take away from this? Is it a case of the RFU don't care? Because I think a lot of people probably think that at the minute.
So my honest opinion is that the RFU don't care. That is my opinion of, if you're not a club that is feeding the England team, the RFU don't care. So much so that they've reduced funding to the championship because they've looked at the player pathways of England players over the last decade and gone, not many of these are coming through the championship. We're going to lower our investment down to, I think it's $250,000 each club get from the RFU a year.
It's not even that anymore. It's 125.
Is it?
Oh, wow.
And then again, Jesus.
And you look at the state of the championship, even 5 years, 6 years ago, it wasn't the greatest. But now, where you've got a couple of rich teams who can afford to be fully pro, and then a couple of teams, well, the majority of the league who can't be fully pro and essentially are the same as Lincoln and you guys, where you train on a Tuesday and a Thursday and you play on a Saturday. I've been lucky enough to do a bit of work with Nottingham with Hamo down there and seeing how they train. You can't compete with the big boys in that league. But for the RFU to, they're not investing in the championship. They're not investing as much in grassroots rugby anymore because they are, I believe, solely focused on feeding the England team. And that's probably why they think they can spend so much money on getting rid of Eddie and maybe bringing Borthers and his team in. And the rumours are that Borthers was signed from June on anyway. Whether that's true or not, we'll find out in time. But the GBR podcast talked about what that money could have been spent on, and they're absolutely right. The number of facilities you could have put in place with that money, if it's true, if they're talking around potentially £4 million, it's just ridiculous. It really is. But as I say, I don't think the RFU are that bothered.
To me, even if you went, do you know what? See, even if they went senior community rugby, fuck it, I don't care. If they had even just pumped some of that money into minis and juniors to then get them, I mean, I know there's a few clubs around. Midlands seems to be quite good at Midlands, at minis, especially, and junior rugby, but just pump it into the lower parts, the younger parts of it, so people are interested in the sport. Because I think, and I was talking about it with a mate yesterday, I think the only reason the RFU still reach out to community rugby clubs is because they can go, right, here's 50 Twickenham tickets, 100 Twickenham tickets, you sell them. If not, give it back, and we'll make money off you that way. I mean, all they want to do is get bums on seats at Twickenham, and they're not doing that very well because it's too fucking expensive. But it's just, I bet, but also to them, £4 million, it's probably not a lot of money in their heads because they've earned way more than £4 million over time between them.
Yeah. But you make a good point about the Twickenham thing because that is how they make the majority of their money, isn't it? 80,000 seats for that ticket price, and the amount of beer that gets drank down there. So you make a good point there.
Yeah,
and in terms of we take it away then from the value of buying him out of his contract, which I think is, I just don't understand why you would ever set up a contract like that. That someone is shit at their job, so you'll pay them more than you're paying them to fuck off. I just don't get that concept. And I know it comes from football and it comes from the NFL.
I spoke to my manager about it today, and she went, "No, I've seen you perform. There's no buyout clause."
Yeah, I tried it with my boss, and he was happy for me to leave. No, it's in terms of like the quality of the output of the England team, for lack of a better phrase. What do you think, Dougie? I've made my opinions quite clear on here, but what were your thoughts?
You've got to look at it with two hats on. So you look at it from a fan's point of view, and with what we've got available in terms of coaching, player availability, player pool to pick from, etc. We should be winning every single game. There's no doubt about that. We should be competitive in every single game. From a RFU point of view, are we working on a 4-year cycle? I don't know. Are we just about winning the next World Cup? Are we that bothered about Six Nations? Are we that bothered about autumn internationals? I know. I think he had an 80% win rate, calendar year win rate that he needed to maintain. As long as he was keeping that win rate up, then he was fine going up to the World Cups. And this year's not been the best. But 12 games in 2018, he was 50-50. 12 games in 2022, he was 50-50. And he got us to a World Cup final in 2019. So why has that not been looked at again and gone, oh, he can do it? My personal opinion, to get rid of him is ridiculous at this time. But this year, we haven't seen the style of rugby that we need to see from England. My personal opinion is that the coaching group's not good enough. You've got Eddie at the top, but I don't believe the coaching group below him is good enough, especially in the back and with the attack. It's a big step up to the international stage from where the attack coach has been, and he's not been in the game for a very long time. Maybe that whole league background thing has played in his favour, where league coaches are so well regarded at the moment in our sport that that's given him a few kudos points to get the job. But I don't believe he should have been hired in the first place, to be honest, because that's where we've looked poor in attack.
And I think there's two things. I think the first thing is, at this time, I think it is a silly thing to sack him, although performance-wise wasn't good. He's been telling us for the last few years it's about the World Cup. Gets us to the World Cup, we win the World Cup, he's right. Gets us to the World Cup, he fails. It's an easy and cheaper buyout for the RFU. And secondly, I think with the backs coaching especially, and love him or hate him, I think he's a class player. But I wouldn't be surprised if Owen Farrell runs the backs coaching session, the back sessions in training, because he is very much dictatorial. Sounds really negative, but he understands what he wants, and I think he knows. Especially when Ben Youngs was playing 9, that pivot between them two, they very much knew how they wanted the backs to play rugby, and I'm not sure anyone could have ever tapped into that, really, if I'm honest. But I mean, if we go and win the World Cup now, the RFU have made the right decision, and then they'll be able to put their hats down and go, look, listen to us next time.
I think from now moving forward, regardless of what results we have in the Six Nations, and I think we've got 2 warm-up games, haven't we, before the World Cup starts?
Yeah.
Regardless of the results in those games, the RFU would win.
Yeah. Can't win the Six Nations. It's too soon.
Yeah. Permanent coach. Yeah, sorry, but it's just the way it is. Cockers has done really well as a reserve, stepping up into the job. We won a few games. Yeah, we were right to sack Eddie. So for them, it's a win, but for us, we're going to deal with.
Yeah, it'll be labelled the transition period of English rugby, and they've already come out and said, as have the Premiership themselves, but the RFU are going to help the Premiership relaunch again in 24-25, which is going to be another whole excuse of, if it doesn't happen, well, we're trying to focus on our elite in the country and try and build more players to come through. It's all fucking bullshit. Let's get away from the depressing part of rugby and let's have a look at Lincoln. How is, from your opinion, before we get tables and results and stuff up, how has the season gone for Lincoln so far?
It's gone pretty well. We've we had players at the start of the season talking about, going unbeaten, and, we're, as a coaching group, trying to temper that, because going unbeaten is so difficult to achieve. And it was likely never going to happen because we had so many unknowns in the league this year. But ultimately, where we are right now, we're happy with where we've been. We're disappointed with a couple of results, namely losing at home to Mellish. But other than that, we lost away at Hinckley, who were running away with the league. Hinckley's second team, but we were massive in that game, and arguably the better team, when we should have won. So the league overall so far for the first team going really well, second team going really well, ladies going well. So the senior setup of the club's going really well at the moment. I think I said really a few times there.
But just looking at the ones league, for those who like to have the table up at the same time, it's Counties 1, Midlands East, North in brackets. Yeah. It kind of is. There's obviously Hinckley 2's at the top. They're not untouchable, but yourself, Mellish, Loughborough, and Hinckley, that top four seem to have a nice bit of breathing space with Ilkeston with about 14 points behind yourselves. Does it feel like in that league there's much of a gap between you top four and the rest of the league, or is it still quite tight and that's just how results have gone?
No, it's difficult to say no that us four are better than the rest of the league, but it does feel like there's a little bit of a step there. I mean, we look at Ilkeston and Market Raise, and there's two massive games, I think, from the last few years, where we've beaten each other back and forth. We beat Market Raising at home for the first time ever. We've only been at our place for 8 or 9 years. It's the first time we've beaten Market Raising at home this season. They have dropped off a little bit. Ilkeston have dropped off a little bit, and we've lifted a little bit. So it does feel almost like there's a top four and the rest of them kind of thing.
Yeah, and you touched on your second team there as well, and it must be lovely. And I mean, I'm not saying we don't have that and other clubs don't, but seeing your second team, if the RFU site is correct, have gone unbeaten so far, 7 from 7, scoring a lot of points and not conceding a lot. For those who can't see it, scored 305 points and conceded 33. That must be quite a blessing for yourself as a DOR to see the second team are doing what they can do.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, there's the RFU website isn't updated fully all the time, so it's not got every single result on there and all of the points scored and that kind of stuff. But I think the Imps it's either 11 or 12 games unbeaten now this year with friendlies and stuff. In the league that they're in, is if you get 50 unanswered points, the game gets called, and then the game on principles come into it and stuff. So that's happened a couple of times already. But I mean, ultimately, after the restructure last year, they were put in a league which our third team should be in, really. So, we'd expect to be going out there and beating teams, but that will change next year, hopefully, if the Midlands RFU approve my request for our second team to be added to the pyramid, so they'll be entering counties 4 or 5, whichever one it is.
Yeah, we've just we've just done the same, haven't we? Feel with our twos, and I play in our twos, and I tell you what, it's a massive change, because playing for the twos the season before we went into it, when it was just the merit leagues as they call them, you're sometimes picking up games against teams which it is just it's Friday morning, we've got 12 men, these 3 haven't played in 5 years, but let's give them a phone call. Whereas in the pyramid, you do get, even the second teams are sometimes not the easiest teams to play. So what I'm trying to say, so we have there's first teams in that league, and we've always, like the teams like Cleethorpes, which I've never played, and they've always been a team that probably we would expect to go and beat as a previous second team. But you get a friendly league with first teams, and no matter what level a first team is, they often train. A majority of them train, and they have a structure and they have a game plan. No matter whether that's level 9 or level 1, there is that. And second teams tend not to have that as much. I mean, we're a little bit blessed that we've got some wise heads in our twos, and they kind of get rugby and they've come down again. So it's a massive change in how rugby is for, and I think it's good as well, because I don't know, Phil, you might be able to say it, and I get you're probably looking forward to it, Dougie, where if you've got 2 senior teams at training, not that we often have, but you can teach the same game plan, and that way if there is ever a need, you can interchange players quite comfortably, because they at least understand the aim of the game plan. If they're not there to get it yet, that's fine, that could be worked on. But if there's a game plan being planned and played too, then it's a lot easier to get people on board. So the league, big game supposedly on Saturday. You said that market raising is one you target. If it goes ahead on Saturday, are you comfortable? Have you had a lot of lads already on Christmas parties, eating lots of buffet food and enjoying themselves?
Yeah, training numbers. So we had to shift training this week to Monday. The numbers weren't the greatest. I think everyone's they've seen the weather forecast and they know it's going to get cooled off. It's a massive game to go over to Market Raise, and they're our local derby. There's always been a local rivalry with them. You know, traditionally in the last few years, they were, you know, even 2 leagues above Lincoln. You know, they've come down, we've come up, and we're in the same level now. And then arguably we're going past their level, even though they're still investing, especially in their coaching, etc. But yeah, any game against Rays, and all the old boys will tell me over and over. Clearly, I'm not a local, but you know, over and over, Raising is the game, Raising is the game, Raising is the game. So if it does happen, it'll be a good one to have. But I'm not sure the weather's going to let us.
No. Yeah, this is an interesting point. Actually, it's something that I've been at PAVS for 10 years. But when I first came, not from Notts, obviously, when I heard, oh yeah, we've got to go to Newark and beat Newark, or we've got to go to Bridgeford and beat Bridgeford.
Yeah,
I think it's very easy to tie yourself in if you're a clubman in the sense of you've come through. Like I know the fact that our boys will be targeting Bridgeford in the new year because we went down there, lost, and they're just down the road. I knew it. We always target as a twos team because they're just up the road, whatever. Is it, as a coach, do you think it's better when it comes to them games is it better to be from the club and know that Raisin's a big rivalry, we've always got to beat Raisin, or is it better to be able to go, actually, I could take a step back because I'm not massively in that rivalry? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm just waffling, but I know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it makes sense. I would answer that in one of the first questions a new coach at any club should ask is, what are the big local derbies and what games do we need to target? Because if I come into the week building up to Raisin and I'm disjointed, pulled away, and I'm not buying into the emotional energy of it and, you know, the local rivalry, well, how are the lads going to buy into that? So I have to, from my opinion, I have to at least match their level of energy. And if not, sometimes go past their level of energy, because if they're lulling a bit, hitting a lull in the training of it, and I'm like, I have to push that. Lads, it's Raisin this weekend, you know, come on. And hopefully other teams who want to beat Lincoln are doing the same thing. But as a coach, you have to go into a club, know what those big games are from the off, know who the best teams in the league are so you can target your training around those. You have to buy into the local game of it. I understand the point of, you know, do you step away and look at it objectively, but I don't think you can, not at this level anyway.
I like that answer. I like that. Before Phil says anything, I wasn't digging at our coaches for being well involved with the business. Fucking hate him. No, I don't. Hello, Prince. Hello, Liam. Hi, Liam. He's a fan.
Yeah, so normally, Dougie, we just ask people to give us a story from a tour now. Considering you've been in the RAF. Oh, sorry, you've been in the army. I do apologise. And and done plenty of rugby in your time. You must have one decent story for us to hear.
I mean, I've had 2 really big tours as in the military. One was to Belgium, and one was to Las Vegas. So I think the Vegas one is probably the best shout because it's pretty unbelievable. It's pretty unbelievable. So 2011, I think they still run it, but there's the Blackjack Sevens is out there, ran out of Las Vegas. So 2009, we started the planning to go in 2011 to go as an amateur team with, it wasn't even the full army side or anything like that. It was just a very small RAF station that I was serving on. And we had a good rugby team. And we set up to take 15 lads to Vegas to go and play in the sevens at the absolute lowest level of the Blackjack Sevens, but just to get over there. funding was put in place, everything, good to go. And then it was Jonah Lomu's cousin, I think, punched a referee in a league game in America. And the way it worked out was Las Vegas didn't have an athletic commission for rugby. And it was run by California, I think. This is what I remember. California basically banned his club from rugby, which was the Vegas club, I think. And basically the Blackjack Sevens didn't go ahead that year. But the company running it, because they'd been banned from all rugby communications, couldn't inform teams that it hadn't.
No way.
Really weird. So some teams found out, and we found out just beforehand. But because we got a load of sponsorship for it, and we'd used some public money, and by that I mean the RAF had helped fund it partly, and the Army had helped fund it partly. We had to go and play. So we ended up playing a game. We found a pub team in Las Vegas, and ironically, Blackheath. So Blackheath had paid it for everything as well, and we ended up pulling up at a school rugby pitch, and we went in a stretched out pink Hummer limousine. There's 15 military guys getting out of the back of a stretched Hummer limousine to play Blackheath and a pub team in a little 3-way round game. And it was just absolutely mental. And then we ended up going back to this pub team's pub, which is like an Irish themed pub in Vegas, out in the suburbs. Got smashed singing Alouetta to some of their ladies, which went down quite well because they didn't have a clue what it was. It was just an unbelievable trip. But I think I paid £300 for 8 days in Las Vegas, and got some good rugby. Yeah. I
won't ask you what you spent the £300 out in Vegas. Not enough to get into a casino.
That was it. Just £300 to get out there, and accommodation, everything. So it was very funded. But I won a few quid on blackjack, which was good because my roommate was using the room, shall we say, for a while. So I went and hit the tables for a bit, and so I made a few quid as well, which was nice. But a lot of good memories.
Using the room. We've all used that. Oh yeah, Easter shoes in the room. I'll come down and have a drink, if that's all right.
Yeah.
That's why I've never shared on a lad's holiday. I'm not brave enough to walk in on that. I'm just jealous. I don't know where it goes. I don't know why that comment came out my mouth. But Dougie, I can't think of anything else apart from, you mentioned earlier, clearly can't think of something else. You mentioned earlier to me that the third team at Lincoln are struggling. I think it's something that obviously we're seeing at Pavs massively, and looking at some of the leagues, they've clearly dwindled in numbers because teams have had to drop out 2 months in. What are you doing at Lincoln that, if anything, obviously you're trying to get the third team up, that could be passed on to other clubs struggling? What kind of initiatives have you put in place? How are you trying to attract people back to rugby?
I think, we've been really lucky with having, 35, 40 lads at training every week, who are feeding the first and the second team. And like you said earlier, trying to build that one game ethos so that the twos can play the same game as the ones and build that up. You have to completely break that and just treat third team rugby as social rugby. Like, there's lads playing third team rugby who I've never seen, literally never seen them, but they're putting a Lincoln shirt on and having a laugh. And ultimately, that's what's important to me. They're getting out, and we're giving them the platform to go out and play rugby. For us at Lincoln, ultimately, we've got an old boy who used to play. I don't know if he ever played first team, but he's played twos for a long time, played in and out of the threes and twos. And after COVID, when we're getting that player base back, he has driven it himself, with help, but he's absolutely driven just getting the old boys back in. For us in Lincoln, we're lucky that we have a university. We get a couple of players from that sometimes. But anywhere you have a player base, you've got to talk. Bob Hoskins was right back in the day on the BT adverts. It is good to talk. You have to reach out and just offer rugby, because if you get one player by asking a whole university, does anyone want to play on Saturday? Purely social rugby. Anyone want a game? If you get one player, you've had success, and it's taking you a 5-minute phone call. For me, it's about putting rugby on for people. You know, whether that is men's, ladies. You know, there's an LGBTQ team getting set up in Lincoln that we're getting established with the club. I just want to put rugby on for everyone, and it doesn't matter what level, it doesn't matter what commitment you can have to training. There is always rugby at every level for everyone. You know, we always say it's a game for all shapes and sizes. It's not just that. It's a game for everyone, every gender, sexuality, whatever, old, doesn't matter. You can have an 18-year-old Colt playing in a thirds team with a 21-year-old uni lad who might be really good but doesn't travel home on a weekend to play for his old club. And then you might have a 50-year-old bloke. You're all in the same team. But ultimately, you're all playing rugby. You're all going to be in the bar afterwards having a laugh, and you're gonna have fun. And that is absolutely the whole point for me. If you can get out and play the game that we all love and have fun doing it, then we've had success.
I mean, there is no better answer. And I think when I first memories of rugby, when I watched my uncles and what have you, it was more third team looking teams. I mean, obviously the higher up you go, the backs, the forwards start looking like backs, and it blows your fucking mind because there's a prop which can sprint. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But it's that demographic of third team and social rugby. So because there is more than that. That is where the true first memories of rugby are made. Because I remember, and you were probably the same, Dougie, and I don't know what you were born good, but and you just didn't realise it. But I remember my first senior game, I was the youngest apart from a mate, by a good 20, 25 years, and I was 17. So you learn, and that's where the dirty rugby is played as well. That's where you really learn your trade. So I like that answer. Phil, have you got anything more for Dougie before we wrap up today?
No, I think that's been brilliant. One thing we might want to touch on is just sort of girls and ladies participation. You've got a Lincoln, Dougie?
Yeah. So we've had a ladies team for a few years, and then they were cutting around level 5, I think, and then like got things together last year, got promoted, so they're playing level 4 now this year. Won a couple, lost a couple. Well, won 3, lost 2, I think. You know, firmly mid-table in a league with, you know, it's got West Bridgeford and Long Eaton in from down your way. You know, it's regional, it's national challenge, it's called. So they're going all the way over to the Welsh border. They've got Bridge North, a few teams around Birmingham, meant to be playing Cannock this weekend. Whether the weather allows, we'll see. But, you know, from a ladies' point of view, the trying to get the ladies in is the biggest thing, because there's not a massive girls section. I've found that, you know, looking into it, a lot of the schools don't play rugby anymore, especially for the girls. So you're not getting that natural flow that you get with the boys, which I think is really going to affect women's rugby. And again, going back to the money that we may have potentially wasted, if you want to call it that, with the Eddie scenario, that could have gone into girls rugby at the school level. So you know, we're doing everything we can there with pitch up and plays for girls to get them into the game. We've got a few NLD representative girls. One's got a game this weekend. You need to feed that ladies team. But one of the biggest problems we have, having got promoted, strangely, is that girls who are playing in leagues below are worried about playing at our level. And if I had a message for us specifically, but to any lady who wants to play at our level at National Challenge 1 or higher, you have to give it a go. Don't be scared that it's too high a level, because there are girls who are coming to train with us and playing ladies rugby on a Saturday in NC1 when they've never played before, because the relative level isn't that high. You probably couldn't do it in the men's game. Not probably, you definitely couldn't do it in the men's game. But the relative level in the ladies' game means that new players can come and play at that level. And because we're lucky, we're blessed with a good coaching group and a good senior ladies group. You know, I think we've got 5 NLD players in our first team. don't be scared. Don't be put off by it. Come and play, and you'll see the level straight away, and realize if you are playing lower level that you can operate at this level as well. But it's about that player throughput. We need to invest in the girls' game specifically if we want to feed women's rugby. But again, I think it goes to the RFU's attitude of they're only feeding elite player pathway stuff to feed for them the red roses.
Yeah, and it's completely right what you said. It's all relativity, isn't it? Because, like you said, you definitely couldn't do it at men's level, but luckily for young women at the minute and older women, the journey it was still quite early in that journey of women's rugby being, sadly, a respected sport. As in, sadly, it's only just we're just at the start of that journey. It's not sad that it's respected. I mean, the clubs that I've been to who have a strong women's team and it's thriving, it's so much fun, much fun, and there's a proper club feeling about everyone there. I mean, it's very easy to go to clubs which have only got men's setups, and it feels clubby, but it feels very masculine and male orientated, and willies putting shots in people's bum holes and that type of stuff. Might do that in women's rugby. I've never played it, but there's so much more of this is a community feeling. I completely echo that. Thank you very much, Dougie. Picking your brain's been mint. I did reach out, like I said, to some of the lads' fastest funny stories. The only one I've just recently got through is you're a better kicker than Johnny Wilkinson. Johnny W. So I'm assuming it was Wilkinson.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that Mr. Kelleher as well? Is it? I don't know.
Might have been, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're better than the lads that you're coaching, and you still don't understand why they can't do it. But you know,
are you telling us he's not a very good player?
Who, Mr. Kelleher or Mr. Wilkinson?
I'll leave that with you to discuss.
Very, very different levels. But
amazing. Thank you very much, Dougie. Phil, we are ending the pod. You've had a long time to think about this, 2 weeks almost. Do you have any wise words to give us before you go?
No, you've caught me. I mean, how I cannot be prepared for that question every time, I don't know. But no, I'm not ready for it this week.
I was going to say, this is our third season. You really should have a notebook of wise words. This is the last one before Christmas. We'll be back in the new year if we remember.
Oh, we didn't wear a Christmas hat. Oh,
no. Me with a beard and 20 stone wearing a Christmas hat. That was a fucking joke waiting to happen, wasn't it? So good job I avoided that one. All right, and thank you very much, Dougie. Thank you very much, Phil. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, everyone. Bye.